Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. Over the past few years of hosting this podcast, I have come to realize how challenging it can be to expand someone's understanding of creativity who doesn't believe they are creative or who struggles to see how creativity might support them in their everyday life. I know I've been away for a few months while I was rehearsing and performing in a musical, but now I'm back. And so once a month, I will be choosing a topic I find fascinating, interesting, or exciting, and combining it with creativity to share with you just how much creativity permeates all aspects of our lives. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about creativity and boredom. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's solo episode of Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I'm going to be talking about creativity and boredom. Now you might think, what does creativity have to do with boredom? That is a great question. Let's dive in. So first of all, what is boredom? In the conventional usage, boredom is an emotional and occasionally psychological state experienced when an individual is left without anything in particular to do. Now, James Dankert, a neuroscientist, and John D. Eastwood, a psychologist, nicely describe it as a cognitive state that has something in common with tip of the tongue syndrome, which is a sensation that something is missing, though we can't quite say what. According to Booker Prize-winning novelist Anne Enright, boredom is a productive state so long as you don't let it go sour on you. And Questlove, an American musician, record producer, disc jockey, filmmaker, music journalist, actor, he's the drummer and joint frontman of the hip-hop band The Roots, says, boredom seems like the least creative feeling, but it's actually a way of clearing space for a new idea to spring back up. Now, boredom is not in itself creative. It's what it leads to that is important. So what makes being bored seem so awful? It's the fact that we have the energy but have no outlet. We, as active beings, have this need to be in a constant state of engagement, but often are unable to find an activity that suits our need. When we find ourselves being bored, we are often trying to find something to stimulate our minds and fill that void. We also associate boredom with this feeling of restlessness, when in fact, we can see it as a catalyst for action, which can promote our own creativity. Now, when our brains are idling or at a state of rest, creativity kicks in to fill the empty space. In a 2013 study, it showed that a small dose of boredom primes our brains to perform well on convergent thinking tasks, also known as problem solving. Now, creative folks from Agatha Christie to Bill Gates credit boredom as a source of inspiration, and the famed New York City ballet choreographer George Balanchine admitted to stumbling onto his best ideas while ironing. Now, we currently live in a time when employee burnout and attrition are running wild. However, neurological research shows that stress goes down while engagement and quality of work goes up if we give our brains a break or allow them to be a little bored. Just a 5-minute breather between meetings has been shown to reduce activity in the areas of the brain associated with stress. So, allowing ourselves to be bored can provide us with a brief moment of escape from our day-to-day lives that are so often filled with endless texts, emails, social media, meetings that overload our brains with stimulation and information. We have to learn to be able to leave these stressors long enough to allow ourselves to feel bored and reap the benefits of that boredom. Now, I will say, boredom gets some bad press and a really bad rap, and almost everything seems to be blamed on boredom. Now, many people view boredom as a negative state, but even though boredom has negative connotations in today's society, many studies show its benefits. It has been shown to trigger creativity. According to the results of one of these studies, boring activities led to enhanced creativity in participants, while also boring reading activities contributed to more creativity in some situations. Boredom has also been shown to be able to enhance productivity. Boredom is also able to ease negative emotions and spark motivation for significant changes in our life. That's amazing. Boredom also allows our brain to switch into the default mode. So when you're bored, your brain isn't focused on a particular activity, which is why it starts to wander. For example, it's when you're performing repetitive tasks like folding your laundry or washing the dishes. But what exactly is going on in your brain in that moment? When it switches to the default mode, it's used to describe the brain at rest. That is, we're not focused on an external goal-oriented task. According to neuroscientists, there are several reasons default mode is beneficial for your brain. Some of them include the time when you're able to perform your most original thinking and problem solving, and it encourages you to have empathy and to broaden your imagination. Boredom also allows your brain to process new information better. For a brain to rest, it needs to experience boredom. And we also need to have some rest for our brains. So when learning something new, you're feeding your brain stimuli. And in order to process new information, your brain needs frequent breaks. During these moments of rest, it's able to sort out new data, new information, and as a result, you'll be capable of remembering these new pieces of information later. So apart from breaks, having enough sleep at night is equally important for your brain functionality. Not only will you feel relaxed in the morning, but thanks to this routine, you'll have more energy to better organize your life. So the time you spend while being bored is definitely not time wasted. Many experts agree that boredom is a motivation state, a call to action that pushes you to change your environment. In line with that, numerous studies show that boredom can trigger your creativity and enhance productivity, as mentioned before. Boredom has also shown in some studies that it can motivate you to be empathic and even help you make significant changes in your life. Now, the social pressure to be in a state of constant fulfillment, whether online or otherwise, has a lot to do with our shame around boredom. But our need to always feel productive existed long before social media told us to work hard, play hard. Or busyness became a status symbol. So allowing ourselves to be bored is not as simple as just managing our screen time better. We need to change our attitude to boredom if we are to help it fuel our creativity. So I have a question for you, or actually a couple of questions. When was the last time you were bored? And what did you do about it? Did you daydream? Did you leisurely observe the world? Or, like most of us, did you fill your time with a structured activity? Now, recent studies also show on boredom and creativity suggest that boredom can actually enhance creativity. Scholars have found the boredom we experience during passive activities like listening to a speech motivates people to seek out new and rewarding activities. So the experience of overscheduling that produces overstimulation, which is a common characteristic of lives packed to the gills with organized activities, and denies us the boredom we may need to ignite our imaginations and fantasies, which is the stuff of creativity. The daydreaming and just doing nothing we associate with boredom often create the perfect environment to produce our best ideas. So, how can you spark boredom to enhance creativity? Try to find something to do that isn't necessarily mentally stimulating. Go for a walk on a familiar path, lift some weights, or sit with your eyes closed and allow your mind to wander. There is value in boring tasks that engage the body but not the mind. Boring tasks and practices free the creative mind from the constant inundation of information. We're taught that boring is bad, but it may well be the only way to help you disconnect from your surrounding distractions and might just bring you that spark of creativity or sense of peace that you've been waiting for. I'm going to leave you with a quote from Adam Grant. He's an organizational psychologist and best-selling author who explores the science of motivation, generosity, original thinking, and rethinking. He says, "Resting is not a waste of time. It's an investment in well-being. Relaxing is not a sign of laziness. It's a source of energy. Breaks are not a distraction. They're a chance to refocus attention. And play is not a frivolous activity. It's a path to connection and creativity." Thanks so much for joining me for this solo episode. I love getting the opportunity to share with you how creativity connects to other areas of our lives and how creativity can support transformation and growth. Remember, creativity is a mindset, and anything we do can be creative. Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.